This is Kevin Pruitt with another episode of Rising Tide Startups, and my guest today is Kelly McCausey. Kelly, thanks for joining Rising Tide.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So tell our listening audience a little bit of background. Who is Kelly McCausey?
Oh, so I always like to say I'm a blogger, podcaster, instigator of communities. I'm also a coach, but that's not my primary business model. So I don't like to introduce myself that way first.
Well, give us a little background, family background, historical background.
I'm born and raised here in Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
I have one son, all grown, married. He's given me an adorable granddaughter. She's 3. She's just a part of my life. We embrace multi-generational living.
Oh, wow.
So we got a house together after she was born. I travel quite a bit, so it really works out nice for all of us. And I get to enjoy her whenever I'm home.
I think I've made my kids upset because I told them, I said, hey, if I could have figured out how to go right past you and go right to grandpahood, I may have taken that route. So yeah, they're a little less stress. I think it's all the benefits without the stress of parenting. But yeah, well, thanks for that. Just adding that background. So let's touch a little bit on your business. So give me the brief overview, and maybe we're going to step on an elevator and you can give me the elevator pitch as we're going up.
Okay. So my brand is Love People and Make Money, which everything I do is about content marketing and community building. I found early on that when I sunk my roots deep into a community of people that I loved, just looked around, spot their needs, seek to meet their needs, either meet them myself or meet them through an introduction to someone else, that process of building a community always leads to potential profit. And I actually got my start way back in the day in the work-at-home mom community.
Okay.
And when my son grew up and moved out, it didn't feel congruent anymore to call myself a work-at-home mom, which is what led to the ultimate rebrand. But my heart and everything that I do has not changed much over the years.
Well, let's take a little deeper dive into the kind of the community building aspect, because I mean the content building is very self-explanatory, but so how did you, I mean, you kind of touched on a little bit, but if you want to dive a little deeper, so how did you identify your specific tribe, or your community? What were some of the key characteristics of somebody that really resonated with your message or you resonated with theirs?
Great question. The work-at-home mom community, so this is going back to 2002 was when I got started, and 2003, the next year, I started my internet radio show. Mm-hmm. Some people would say, oh, the work-at-home moms, that's the community that you served. But actually, mine was tighter than that, because there are so many different ways to work at home. I mean, you could be running a home daycare.
Sure.
And you would be a work-at-home mom.
Right.
That wouldn't really be my target market. So my market, it was work-at-home moms who were pursuing internet-based income streams, mm-hmm. who wanted to do something honest and ethical, who wanted to build something long-term, who really wanted to it was okay to begin by trading hours for dollars, but right. Ultimately in the long run, to not have every dollar tied to some work that had to be done.
Right.
So moms who were interested in more passive recurring income streams, building something around an area of expertise, that's who ultimately started to show up around me. Wanting what I had.
Now, had you started an online business, and was it in a specific niche?
So my start, I was working full-time managing the office at my church. Mm-hmm. And so I wasn't making enough money to pay the bills regularly. I loved my job, but just didn't pay very well.
Right.
But the skills I had built up there, desktop publishing, little graphic design, were a little marketable, I felt. So I started a website offering to help people with their desktop publishing. Like, would you like me to design your wedding invitation or design a flyer? And nobody ever hired me for anything that I was offering to do on that website. But a lot of people lined up and said, hey, could you make me a website like that?
Okay.
And so I took a little step to the left and shifted my offerings to be around helping people with their websites. Back then, it was not as easy.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So I that's really what brought me into the work at home mom community, because my first customers back then were fellow work at home moms who needed some help setting up their shopping cart site,
Right.
or a banner or a button for
Right.
advertising.
Like they were making maybe crafts or selling specific products or something like that. And I mean,
Yeah, there were a lot of women, a lot of moms back then selling things like homemade candles and soaps and crafts. And they were also, those are the early days of affiliate marketing. So they
mhm.
were creating websites in order to promote affiliate programs or to benefit from ad income.
Right. Right. So tell me, so when was or I mean, I'm assuming the shift has happened where you're virtually doing everything kind of online or everything in the online space. So what was that moment that you kind of transitioned your business and decided, hey, I'm not going to work at the church any longer, and
Yeah.
I'm going to now go all in on this new kind of side gig that has kind of grown.
It is, when I think back to it, I still remember, I get tension in my body when I think about that decision to leave my day job.
Mm-hmm.
Because I started an internet radio show, which the following year became a podcast. And the listeners of the podcast really, drew in to want to know more.
Mm-hmm.
My friend Alice Seba and I launched a paid membership site it was Mom Masterminds. And basically, there's so many scams out there for work at home moms.
Sure.
There's so much really bad information still today, really bad information. And so we opened this up and said, hey, pay us $25 a month, and here you will only get good information, high quality training. And that really took off. Like, Alice was the visionary in that situation, because she knew that this would work. I doubted it. Because I had a big poverty mindset going on for myself.
Mm-hmm.
But I was willing to play. I'm glad I was, because it totally changed my life. Between the podcast, between selling ads on the podcast and running that membership site, and then starting to do some consulting, coaching on the side to help
Mm-hmm.
other people get started with a podcast. From 2003 to the end of 2005, my business income paid off all my debt. And I came to, like, the following month, after all the bills are paid, I'm like, where's all this money in my checking account? And
Somebody added a zero.
well, it was just, I knew I was making the money, but I was paying all those bills. So
Right.
it didn't
Exactly.
feel that prosperous.
Right. It was in and
And
out. Yeah.
yeah. And to be fair, because of the target market that I was served, I was always ruthlessly honest about what that meant.
Mm-hmm.
I made about $25,000 at my day job. So my part-time gig had gotten up to making about that much.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I looked at them and said, what would happen if I did this full time?
Yeah.
And I went into my pastor's office bawling and quit my job.
So I'm assuming that kind of your target market has kind of shifted over time. I mean, so
Yeah.
what is your it's kind of a twofold question. I'll ask you the first one, then after you answer I'll follow up with the second part. But who is your ideal client today, and what do they look like? And can you really narrowly define them, or is it a little broader definition right now?
It there's there's a very narrow definition of my perfect client, someone who might coach with me privately.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the description of the community,
Right.
because if I were a coach, if coaching were my business model, I would have a really fine definition of who that private client is, and everything I do would be about getting those
Right.
clients.
Yeah.
And that's not my model. So I'll answer the coaching question first. It's a very likely to be a woman. It doesn't have to be,
Mm-hmm.
but very likely to be a woman with expertise who's already benefiting from it in some offline place, whether they're speaking, writing books, consulting, and they want to bring it online to leverage it into some digital resources,
Yeah.
a course, a
Yeah.
membership, etc.
Right.
That's my perfect consulting coaching client. That's the person who's going to come work one-on-one with me.
Mm-hmm.
My wider community, it widens out from there to be, again, mostly women who are really interested in building something, laying a foundation in order to begin building that reputation for expertise.
Mm-hmm.
So my community is made up of service providers like virtual assistants and graphic designers
Mm-hmm.
and consultants and affiliate marketers and bloggers and authors.
Freelancers and yeah. So I mean, it kind of segues into the question. So I've kind of got a middle question here now, based on what you just said. So, you're not just focusing on the coaching side of things.
Right.
If you said if you were, your kind of your avatar, your ideal client would be really easy and narrowly defined. So, talk a little bit about what are your, like, the various income streams, and maybe how that's changed over the last few years, and maybe even add some percentages to it. Like, I had 15% is this, 25% is this, and maybe some things as a lesson to our listeners, maybe some things that you've tried that worked well, some
Yeah.
things that didn't work well. So you kind of take it in whatever direction you want to take it here. I
Sure.
asked you 15 questions there in one, so go ahead.
So I have to tip my hat to Alice Seba, my first business partner,
Mm-hmm.
because, like I said, she was the visionary. She's the one that said, I think this paid membership site will work, even though everyone else said, oh, this is a frugal market, they'll never pay. And they were wrong. She was right. It was very profitable. So I saw right away in those early days that I could do work, create a course training,
Mm-hmm.
and profit from it long term. So I'm so grateful that I picked up that knowledge and experience in 2004. So my business today is, I have 5 different brands that I am involved in online. My
Mm-hmm.
own Love People Make Money, that's my baby.
Right.
I have a partnership with Nicole Dean over at Beachpreneurs. We do events, hotel conferences, and retreats and co-working retreats for entrepreneurial women, all at the beach. Mom Web's Hosting is a partnership with, I've been running that hosting company with the awesome Scott, as my clients call him, since 2004. I have a couple of brandable content brands. Are you familiar with PLR, private label rights content?
I'm not.
So I have those 2 brands with other business partners. And what's really important is that these brands grew over all these years. I didn't come out of the gate and say, I think I'll start 5 different businesses.
Sure.
I was very focused. And so the hosting company was the first thing to come out to be run as a separate brand. And then later, Beachpreneurs came along in 2013, and then the PLR company came around in 2016. So I do have these different streams of income, these different businesses with different business partners. But in my own business, in Love People Make Money, I have different streams of income.
Right, exactly.
So I have my coaching consulting, which is about 25% of my income. I sell digital information products and run memberships, which is probably, another 25% of no, a little more, probably 30% of the income that comes in. And then I have affiliate marketing.
Right.
So
Okay.
when I'm talking about building a business online, I'm recommending things.
Yeah.
Software, shopping cart software, web design software. I'm recommending training, like somebody has a Pinterest course, someone else has an SEO course.
Mm-hmm.
And much of the time, those resources have an affiliate program attached that either pays me like a 50% commission upon sale, or a recurring commission if it's a membership or resource. So the rest of my income comes from that.
Now, can I ask you a real quick question on the affiliates? Are these normally fairly well known products and resources where it's kind of a preset affiliate program, or are these all negotiated, or kind of a combination of the two?
It's mostly pre-existing programs. However, a lot of the people that I'm sharing with my community, I might have actually gotten to double dip the experience, because they might have been my client.
Yeah, exactly.
Who I helped set up their product and their affiliate program, and they just happen to be a match for my community, so then I'm promoting it.
Right.
It's interesting that you asked that question, because I think most people just look for pre-existing affiliate programs to promote. But I was talking with my friend Jessica LaRue just the other day. She's from the sellingfamily.com. She negotiates unique commission opportunities for herself. Like if, let's say, someone has a program and they're only paying a 15% commission, which is kind of puny for a digital resource. And she'll just reach out to them and say, hey, I've got this list that you're perfect for, but your commission does not excite me. And so she'll negotiate, something else. And I think that's super cool. I want to start doing that.
Right. And maybe as other programs that really do fit your niche audience, that may not they may not have even thought about doing affiliates on their own, and you can kind of approach them and kind of, introduce the idea to them, or like you said, I mean, make it more a kind of a bespoke relationship between you and the provider. So,
joint venture. I did, my friend Marusha Murphy was offering a program that I was really excited about telling my community, and she didn't have anything set up yet. So no cart, no affiliate program. So we just set up a special link. She just went old school.
Right.
And I sent people the traffic, they paid, and she knew that they were my referral, and she paid me a bounty on each person who signed up.
Well, you keep bringing stuff up, and it's making it difficult as the host, because it generates so many questions for me to ask you. And I'm trying to stay on track here and make sure I'm not throwing you any curves. But this whole idea, every time you mention another stream or whatever, it generates another list of questions. But talking a little bit about the community itself. So how big is the community? How active is it? And maybe give me a little bit of, speak to me like I'm an audience member, which I am an audience member of Rising Tide, but speak to me as like, if I'm considering doing a community, what are some, things to think about that you've seen work well in the past?
That's the perfect direction to go in. Because I get really jazzed about it. So my community, a couple of years ago, we moved off of a private forum. I'd been on the private forum since the membership started in 2004. But around 2016, people started to say, it'd be so much easier to engage over on Facebook because I'm already there every day. I resisted it heavily, but now we're there. That community is just over 1,000.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually trim that group a couple of times a year because I think people join Facebook groups with a very light intention to engage and then they never come back.
Yeah.
So we actually go through the member list and boot people who aren't active, who were never active.
Right.
So when I say it's 1,000, I mean it's 1,000. And when I look at my analytics, 65% of those people were active in the last month, which makes me really happy. And it would make my ego feel better if I could say there were 5,000 people in the group. But if there's 5,000 people and there's still only 600 people who are active, then that number becomes really meaningless.
Right.
So
Right. And there's a great article that talks about, making 6-figure income with 1,000 true fans.
Yes.
So, which I
Yes.
think is really interesting. But so uh, here we go again. You said something else and generated another question for me. But how do you get around the Facebook kind of algorithms that say, you can have 600 people in your community, or you can have 1,000 or whatever, but the things that you post don't necessarily go to all of those 600 or 1,000. I mean, is it based on their activity? I mean, if they have to be active to see those posts, or how do you tag them in the post? I mean, you got 600 people tagged in a post. I mean, how do you get around that? So
no, honestly, I'm Facebook agnostic. You know how people say, someone who's agnostic about God will say, I believe he's there, but I don't believe I can communicate or
can't prove it. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah.
That's how the Facebook algorithm is such a mystery, and I don't try to game it. If whether or not I'm on a forum or a Facebook group or anywhere else, if I create a compelling enough reason to be there, they'll be there. They'll make it work. And so people choose for themselves whether they leave on notifications for a group.
Mm-hmm.
And people choose for themselves how often they visit their favorite groups.
Yeah, that's true.
And the loyal members of my community, they just visit it. They don't wait for Facebook to tell them something's there.
Give them permission.
They just come check in.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good word. That's a good word. That and you're right. It's a push pull. It's a both and. It's not just how you notify them through posts. It's are they proactively engaging in the community itself? And that's a good point. Yeah. So let's one other thing I wanted to chase a little bit is this whole idea you talked about retreats and live events and things like that. So you've been doing this over the past few years. So what is how do you keep doing that? I mean, how do you keep the momentum up with those events? I mean, it's got to be time consuming. It's got to be expensive. How do you generate continual interest in those? Does that makes sense? Kind of the background of that question. So
yes,
touch on that as well.
I've got that question is so in tune. So we just had another event just a few weeks ago on Daytona Beach. That's Beachpreneurs Beach Camp. And
Spring Break Central.
Yep. We just missed. We go right after.
It's probably safe. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm all about content marketing and community building. So I'm going to generate content every week, no matter what. I'm going to email. I'm going to share something on social, blog, podcast, be out and about, active, communicating with my community every week. Whether that content is focused on my next event or not, it's the same effort. So it does not take a lot of time. The time is the time.
Right.
I'm going to spend the time. What I focus it on is my choice. and I choose that I love the events. I love what the events create for
Mm-hmm.
myself and my community. So the other question is, isn't it expensive? Yes. um, it can be, but my events are so low key. Like, I do not put on those fancy schmancy pomp and circumstance events where hundreds of thousands of dollars are spent on lighting and
Right.
fanciness
Yeah.
and all the pizzazz. My events are very low key, as analog as possible, because that's just me. I'm just not fancy. So it does cost more than, say, doing something online.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not the time, it's not the money, it's the risk that stops most people. Most people would agree that, yep, I'm going to spend time doing something, might as well
Right.
spend it on an event. I'm going to spend money on something, might as well spend it on the event. But risk, if you put together something online and invite people to it, and very few people sign up, it's not that big a deal. People plan things, and then those things go away for lack of attention.
Yeah.
Nobody really notices. But when you've signed a contract with a hotel or rented a beach house and paid a deposit to the VRBO people, you can't just let it go away later. You are on the hook.
Yep. Yep.
Um,
But you got to
so
manage those expectations too. I mean, you
yeah,
have an idea that when you host these things that you're going to have a certain percentage of
yes,
your community that's going to engage in these, and they may even be, repeat,
yeah,
customers or whatever. But um, let me dive a little deeper here, and I'm really curious that you've been doing this for a while now, and so take us back to kind of early days of Kelly McCausey, and what is the one piece of advice that you really wish you would have known when you kind of got in, maybe early to mid 2000s and maybe late 2000s, that you're saying, boy, I wish I'd have known that going in, because that would have
yeah.
saved me a lot of time and effort.
Uh, you know, I wish I would have believed in myself and my ability to create income, because I mentioned before, I had a poverty mindset.
Mm-hmm.
I had ruined my credit and gotten myself good and broke very early in life. And so even as I was starting this business, I I just wanted to pay my bills. I always had small hopes and expectations. Even after I had gotten myself debt free and was feeling really good about the income that I was producing, making more than I'd ever imagined making, I didn't believe that I could really do something that would create six figures. Um, so I didn't prepare myself for managing that kind of money,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't prepare my mindset. You know, for if I could go back and look me in the eye in the mid, like 2000, like right after I quit my day job, like 2006, if I could have looked myself in the eye and said, listen, this is great, but you in a few years are going to be making, 6-7 times this much. So start taking better care of your bookkeeping, start putting money away, and start investing in your mindset. You goofball, Kelly, you're capable of so much more. Because I that year that I quit my day job, like I said, I had generated about 30,000 from my business.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always been really honest about where my income was. Within a few years, I hit that six figure. That first time I generated six figures. And last year I doubled my income from the year before, generating about $250,000 in revenue. I'm still a small fry in this world. Like, I got
But your
friends who
fry's getting bigger.
I get friends who make millions. I don't make millions, but the the pain of that, I hate the word adulting, but the pain of adulting around all that income, oh, tough lessons, lots
Yep.
of stupid tax
Yep.
from not being prepared.
So
So
what's one thing that that you think caused this mindset shift?
the shift to where I am now,
Right. Just you said you had a mindset shift. What was the trigger that said, okay, hey, I've got to look at this from a completely different perspective, the dark side of the moon here. So what
yeah.
does it look like?
Well, in 2013, I went to a retreat. It's called Radical Leadership. They work with corporate and entrepreneurs. A lot of big companies like Target and UPS send their people to these retreats to develop their personal leadership abilities. And one of the things is that they really drive it home that you're responsible for your life. You're responsible for the choices you make. And at that retreat, we were talking about prices. And I'd be embarrassed to tell you what I was still charging for my coaching consulting at that time. And just a couple of conversations around people who I'd helped start their businesses and the success that they'd created. Just the testimonials and success stories of my business, the impact I've had on other people, just kept getting mirrored back to me. Like I was still like doing coaching calls for $50. And in my mind, that's huge money. I'm a college dropout. I'm a high school dropout. I'd never made more than $11 an hour at a day job. So $50 an hour. Oh my word, that's a lot of money. But they kept mirroring back that, look, you helped this person and now they have a 6-figure business. You helped that person and now they have, 10,000 listeners on their podcast every week. They kept mirroring it back, and I'm like, it's slowly dawning on me. The value of my time is not based on my education or anything like that. The value of my time with a client is the impact
Right.
that it creates. And that truth that I bring value by showing up, not because of anything else. I just bring it because I show up and it creates an impact, and that is worth money. So the mindset really started to shift there, where I just understood I bring value, and acknowledging that, leaning into that. Yes, I raised my prices, but that's not as much as I did raise my prices, I still don't charge what a lot of people charge, and I don't want to, because it's not my primary income stream.
Right.
I want to work with the people I want to work with. But I think the more I just own it, that I bring value, not just as a coach, but as a podcaster, blogger, course creator, event host.
Right.
The more I just own it and relax about it, the more people just start showing up and saying, yes, I'm not an airy fairy fluffy person. I do not pretend to know anything about law of attraction. I don't know anything. Don't care. But as I relaxed and owned my value, people started to come and value me.
That's a great segue into the next section that I'd like to head into, and that really is kind of as we're kind of headed toward the latter stage of our chat today. Is I really want, and you've already done this multiple times, so this is like one more opportunity for you to teach our audience. But let's segue into an area that we call the Rising Tide Micro Course. And I really want to just unleash your inner teacher here, and just, give us 2 or 3 key points about, your area of expertise and something you think would really be of value to our listeners. And I'm just going to step out of the way, and you have the lectern here. So you're on.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. So since we've talked about community building, let's talk about starting a Facebook group, starting a community. Realize that as you create content, as you blog, podcasts, create courses, whatever you're doing, even if you're selling a physical product, there are people coming and buying it, and they would probably like to know each other, not just you. So by creating a Facebook group or any other environment where you can let people get together, you're going to let them come and spend time with each other. And I want you to think of yourself as the host. You are the leader, but you are not the ruler. The first thing I want to encourage you is don't create a big long list of thou shalt not in your Facebook group. I got to tell you, I'm a grown-up. I do not need you to tell me what to do and not to do in this big long list. And some people, some community leaders, they put on this ruler hat and they become a little despot, and they treat all their members like little unruly children. They publish this great big list of rules. You shall not promote yourself. You shall not post links. You shall not post this. You shall do this on this date only. And then they wonder why their Facebook group is dead and they have no engagement. And it's because you made us want to run away from all the rules. You know, like a bunch of rules of how to do things right is great for a kindergarten classroom, not so great for a college classroom. Think about it the same way. So if you're going to start a group, first rule, just don't create rules. Just deal with situations. You know, I have my Facebook group, every once in a while someone shows up and they spam me. I just delete their post, shoot them a note, say, that's not okay here. Come get to know us, and then maybe we'll care about what you have to share. I don't need to go put a no spamming rule on the website. So the next thing, if you're starting a brand new Facebook community, a lot of people say, how do you get the engagement going? First thing you need to know about that is that there will never be more energy and engagement in the group than what you bring. So you have to be prepared to show up, be engaged, ask questions, share answers, respond to other people. And one person cannot kickstart a Facebook group in my experience. So I want you to think about inviting 3 compatriots, 3 friends, like 3 partners in creating engagement in the group. Maybe they're going to be customers of yours, faithful, loyal customers. Maybe you want to reach out and say, I am looking for 3 people who will help me kickstart the conversation in my group. But here's the secret to this. Be super specific. I'm looking for a commitment of 30 days, that you would visit the group at least 5 times a week, that you would start 3 conversations, and that you would respond to 3 conversations that someone else has begun. And just say, would you commit to that? And let them say yes or no. You're not asking for too much. These are people who are already engaging in communities. So if they say no, fine, go ask somebody else. But if you and 3 other people are engaging, and now you're inviting people into your group, they're coming into an active space, an active conversation, and it's easier for them to jump in. Nobody wants to be the first person to start a conversation at the party, especially introverts. Introverts are not going to start conversations until they get really comfortable with it. So find those 3 people, get that commitment, be really specific. Don't hesitate to hold them accountable to it. If at the end of the first week they haven't shown up, shoot them a note, say, hey, just want to remind you, this is what we're doing. Are you still a yes? Because if you're not, I can find someone else. You want people who want to be there. And don't hesitate to choose 3 more people the next month if you feel like you still need to build that momentum. but there's going to come a moment where the conversation just starts to take off. So no rules, get help, and invite, invite, invite. So put the invitation to the Facebook group on your emails, your receipts, when you're communicating in other groups, when you get the opportunity to share that you have the group. Just take every opportunity to invite people into this next layer of the relationship with you.
What a great micro course of just how to engage. I mean, I'm glad that you touched on that specific topic, because we had talked about it earlier about, engagement in Facebook groups and community. And for our listeners, that was not a plant question. That was that was strictly serendipitous that
That was
she
awesome.
touched on that. So it was great follow up to things we had talked about earlier. So as we wrap up today, is there anything that I haven't touched on, haven't asked you about, that you just want to specifically just leave us with this one liner of just a value, or touch on something that you think would be very beneficial to our listeners, and then just tell them where they can find you online?
One thing I know that's true for my entire community is that they want to publish content they're proud of for a community of people they love. So if that's not happening for you on a regular basis, Love People Make Money is a great resource, because I interview people who are, I share resources that help you do it. And I'd love to connect with anybody there.
And the website is lpamm.com, correct?
Yep.
All right.
I'll get you there.
All right. Well, Kelly, thank you so much for just taking your time today. It's been a pleasure chatting with you and engaging with you and our Rising Tide audience. And just thanks for all the value in just a very short period of time. But I love the way that you kind of framed your answers, and it wasn't just answering questions. I mean, there was just a lot of content, a lot of depth in your answers that you gave us today, and especially the micro course that I know people will receive value from. So, but thank you again for just doing the like I said, just taking the time and adding value and just playing your part in helping all boats rise in a rising tide. Kelly, have a great day.
Thanks. You too. Bye.